Good luck, Monty.
Less theatrical. It's still like
Good
big.
luck, Monty.
Good luck. Good luck.
Anybody in my generation was brought up on the talking film, which came in when I was about 4 years old. So
It's good luck.
I was 14 years old in the year of Gone with the Wind, The Wizard of Oz. The great classic films were made as I was growing up, and I saw them. So we were all riveted by films, my generation. It's no accident. Norman Mailer, William Burroughs, Truman Capote, all of my contemporaries have acted in movies. Not very well, most of them. Good luck, Monty.
That was so perfect.
Movies are now the lingua franca of the world, or were,
Scary.
until television.
Mary Hartman! Mary Hartman!
Well, we were doing Mary Hartman and received a letter from Gore. We hadn't been on the air very long, about 2 months, I guess. But in the case of Mary Hartman, 2 months was a little different than the average weekly show. It had really caught America by storm because it was on Monday through Friday, every night of the week. Gore, I guess, had heard about it. Somebody sent him some tapes. And next we got a letter. Could he was coming to the States anyway, and could he guest on the show? Could we find some way to write him in? And of course we did. I believe we wrote him in when Mary Hartman was about to, or had just had, a nervous breakdown, was about to be institutionalized. And Gore was covering the story ostensibly for some major national publication. And he came on as himself. And nothing was the same.
So you really want to write a book with me about you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I really want to write a book about me, by me, about you.
Oh, by you, about me?
Yes.
You see, that is what I thought.
Yes.
See, sometimes they try to trick you around here.
I can certainly see that. Anyway, as I told you on the telephone from Rome, I think that a book about you would be a book about America. It would be a book about emptiness, a book about promises unkept. It would also be, paradoxically, a book about hope. It would be a book about, well, survival against pretty terrible odds.
I would love to read that book.
I think Gore Vidal has his own place because he's so much a part of the popular culture. He's so welcome as a literary entertainer on the average talk show. And at the same time, he's more and more welcome in literary circles. I mean, of great esteem. I mean, Gore, to hear Gore talk, you know, the intellectual part of American literary life has not found him. To watch his amazing career is to understand that he's very well received. But he's like few other writers, like nobody else I can think of. 360 degrees of the culture seems to find interest in Gore Vidal.
There's Gore Vidal, the American writer. Let's ask him for an interview.
Good evening, Mr. Vidal. Do you mind if we disturb you for a second?
Well, I suppose you're going to ask me that inevitable question, why do I live in Rome? You could say I live here because it's so central, centrale. But most of all, I like the Romans. They don't care if you live or die. They're like cats. And of course, this is...
What do you think your most successful enterprise in the movies has been?
Well, the only time that I ever got something of my own made in my own way until the recent Billy the Kid with Val Kilmer was The Best Man, which was a play of mine that ran for 2 years on Broadway, opened in 1960. And it's a very good movie about American politics with Henry Fonda, Lee Tracy, Cliff Robertson. And it was one of the few realistic satiric plays about American politics.
Why? Bill, isn't easy to say, but I came here to support Cantwell for president.
I knew that this morning.
Did you now?
I have some gift for politics.
Well, I never said you didn't.
Tonight you warned me about Cantwell's smear, so that means you've changed your mind about him, doesn't it?
Yes, I have changed my mind about him. He lost me because he wasn't smart. He made a mistake. He figured I was going to back you when I wasn't. You got my message. Joe didn't. That's a serious error. Shows he doesn't understand character. And then, this smear thing. He fires off a cannon to kill a bug, and that is just plain dumb. So, I mean to knock him off. Which means, I guess, that you are going to be our next president.
I suppose, having been born at West Point, whose motto is duty, honor, country, that some of it must have rubbed off on me, because I noticed recurring themes, and particularly my dramatic work is honor and justice, duty, how to behave when the enemy comes, what is honor.
You would have gone?
It ain't what I want, it's what I have to do. I guess you've gone and forgotten all the big talk. How we was all gonna die for liberty, all the rest of it. Don't you remember, Father, all the speeches, all the talk, what you said right here in this room? It's our honor that's at stake. You remember?
I didn't know.
No, nobody knew, but that don't make any difference. Now there are no more speeches. There's nothing left but dying. Well, we still know how to do that. We got a real calling for that.
And do you side with those who compromised or with the idealists, however mistaken?
I think people are what they are. I don't sit in moral judgment on them.
But you like the idea of putting them into a moral situation where they had to choose?
Oh, yes. A collision of this sort it involves life and death, and what is honor, what is national honor, what is personal honor.
Sir, let me go with you. I could protect you.
Does the Billy the Kid character, who figures in several incarnations in your work, is he that same sort of morally ambiguous creature?
He's more the great god Pan, I think.
How can I take this? This is my present to you.
Mr. Tunstall, you give me everything I own. I don't want nothing to happen to you.
He's sort of Huckleberry Finn, the noble savage, the beauty of the wilderness, to escape civilization. As Mark Twain has Huck Finn said, to light out for the territory. Well, Billy, born in New York, lights out for the territory and creates himself. He was somebody who, again, believed in a personal honor, also didn't much care for civilization. And he thought, if you kill my friend, I will kill you.
Benvenuti.
Per me sceneggiatura è tutto, ma abbiamo qui uno proprio auteur, scritto, diritto, regista e attore.
Non se ne accorge, resta lì ferma e dopo un po' muore. Anche da noi si procede pian piano e non lo...
It was remarkable what happened, because you saw a real American tragedy unfold. I talked to him later about it, and he said, well, you know, my grandfather had lost his Senate seat around this time of year at my age, the age I am now. And I felt his soul in me as I was doing this. It had entered into a whole other realm where he was sitting there talking with his grandfather's voice coming out of him.
I think the entire Congress is quite aware of the National Security Council and its powers and its functions, and the fact that this is a national security state and less of a representative one. But it's, you know the story of the frog in the pan of cold water. If you throw a frog into hot water, it'll jump around and suffer greatly and die. If you put the frog in a pan of cold water, and you put that on the stove, and you heat it to the boiling point,
The frog doesn't stir. He doesn't feel it. He doesn't notice it. And at the end of it, he's dead. These things happen incrementally. They're gradual. Are we complicit? Yes, we are. Are we revolutionaries? How do you do it once you're here?
There are no Mr. Smiths in Washington.
He's just such an original. He's so American in that way. You know, he's really clearly such a believer in the Republic in a very idealistic way, which is such a strange thing to learn about him, because you could think that he was being cynical sometimes, his way of speaking, and he's so very funny and so biting. But in fact, he so believes in the purity of the Republic, and I think after his, after he wasn't able to successfully run for office, that it really was devastating to him. You know, I think it's part of his family thing, and you could tell that that was a turning point in some way for him.
What would you have made of him as a president or a senator?
Well, he's just too smart to ever be elected. I mean, he speaks too smart. He's just too intellectual. I mean, he would have had to probably go to a finishing school and be redone.
Political stance.
Do I think that being gay has anything to do with my political stance? I have never said that I was anything at all. I am ecumenical. There is no difference at all between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. I'm the last one. We've all known that for a long time. I was co-chairman with Dr. Spock of the People's Party until 1972. And in 72, Senator George McGovern of South Dakota appeared as an almost irresistible liberal candidate who would get us out of the war. And suddenly I realized, what's the point to our party? And we have the perfect candidate to end the war.
I believe we want and must have a president who will summon this nation to a higher standard and rekindle the American purpose. I believe you're going to express that tomorrow in the privacy of that voting booth. I believe we are going to prevail.
I think part of Gore Vidal despises politics, the demagoguery, the hypocrisy of it. But another very important side of him loves politics. If there's any professional tragedy in his life, it's the fact that he never made it to the United States Senate or to some other high office, because I think an important part of him covets and admires the life of public service and politics more than any other activity.
Which book do I like best is probably Burr. And what am I working on now? Getting elected.
I've watched him handle audiences. I've watched him deal with politicians. He does have a pragmatic quality that I think would have served him well. Obviously, he would have had to discipline his tongue and his pen a little more if he'd been in public office than he has as a writer, an intellectual.
The nice thing about having had an empire is you end up with a great many rugs. Quite extraordinary. There's more rugs, probably, in the British Isles than anywhere else. I first came here in 1939 as a schoolboy. And on the 2nd of September, I went down to Downing Street and watched Neville Chamberlain come out on his way to tell the House of Commons that war was about to begin, which it did the next day. I was staying in Bloomsbury, in Russell Square. It was very exciting. The crowd was odd. I remember this exhalation. There were only about 50 people in front of it, Downing Street, when he came out, looking very nervous. And there was no applause or anything. The crowd just went, Never heard that sound of a crowd before. It's just exhalation. And of course, back to war again.